The Hedera network ought to get a lot more respect for the work that it has done over the last 5 years, or better yet, for the work that has been done on top of the Hedera DLT over the last 5 years. The story we're going to lead with in this episode is the Hashgraph Group has secured an Abu Dhabi global market license and plans to launch a $100 million Web3 venture fund. See, the key thing to know about the Hedera network is that it's not just the governing council, which when people get into the space for the first time and they look into Hedera, they're obviously impressed by it. And that's okay. But there are other independent organizations that are helping to drive the adoption of the Hashgraph DLT technology. And that's what we're going to get an idea of in this episode as well. My name is Wade. You're listening to another edition of the DHN Crypto Podcast. I've been in this space since 2019, and I've researched over 1,000 digital assets. The only reason I sit here is to share all that information with you. All I ask in return, you hit that like button. But please, don't do it for me. All right? Somebody in the back, let them know. Let's do it for HBAR. So, $100 million Web3 venture fund. Ladies and gentlemen, let's dive into this story. So, what happened here is that the Hashgraph Group formed a new entity. Hashgraph Ventures Manager Limited. It's registered, regulated, and licensed in the Abu Dhabi Global Market Financial Services Regulatory Authority. This means that they have the same clearance to do business out there as Ripple does. They have the same clearance to do business out there as Circle recently acquired. The Hashgraph Ventures Manager is planning to launch a $100 million global venture fund out of the Abu Dhabi Global Market. The strategic Web3 venture will focus on generating attractive long-term returns by investing in proven early-stage and well-established companies, utilizing deep technologies to build and commercialize enterprise-grade solutions and products for the Web3 economy. So what we have here is an example, a perfect example of the adoption model real time. The technology is the Hashgraph DLT. The independent organization in this situation would be the Hashgraph Group. And what they're looking to do is contract third-party fintechs, tech providers to come into this ecosystem in order to create a product that is either powered by Hedera DLT or makes use of some of the functionality that the DLT provides. I also like the criteria that they established along with this. That's what we have here. The fund anticipates making strategic investment in Web3 and deep tech companies that are developing innovative solutions in artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, blockchain, DLT, robotics, and quantum computing. Shout out to Google Willow. There are some interesting connections to blockchain. I'm prepping an episode on it. Don't worry about it. But these are the pillars of Web3. You may also hear DePIN in this conversation as well. A lot of conversation comes out of Abu Dhabi, the Middle East, when it comes to DePIN and IoT infrastructure. I also like to bring up their vision for 2030 that includes a number of initiatives focused on emerging technologies or benefiting from emerging technologies, such as AI, blockchain, IoT, so forth and so on. But they get more so into this criteria with this piece here. The fund will only invest in companies that pass a rigorous technical due diligence with demonstrable evidence of tangible commercial traction. So they're only going to put money behind, not a startup here. You have to already be established before you can get any of this funding. And that is something I like to see. It is not done in this space. Lastly, guys, this represents the fifth placement that the Hashgraph Group has acquired for the adoption of Hedera DLT. You can see here, THG operates globally with a diverse network of co-investment venture studios, which include the Deep Tech Venture Studio signed with the Ministry of Investment of Saudi Arabia earlier this year, the Digital Assets Venture Studio in strategic partnership with the Qatar Finance City, the Web3 Venture Studio with IIT Madras in India, also a Hedera Governing Council member, and the Deep Tech Venture Studio and strategic partnership with Innovix in Morocco. So that is why it is important to understand that when it comes to the Hedera network, it's not just the governing council that you should be following. I want to take this opportunity to give you a bit of a cheat sheet when it comes to understanding the Hedera ecosystem. So the group that gave us this story here was the Hashgraph Group, Swiss-based international business, venture capital, and tech company that operates exclusively within the Hedera ecosystem, specialized in venture building programs and strategic investments aimed at enabling entrepreneurs, enterprises, governments to adapt and compete in the Web3 economy. So, to translate, they simply are an independent organization who has a fondness of Hedera DLT. There may be even core developers or builders that house themselves within the Hashgraph Group or closer to the Swiss-based entity. Now, outside of the Hashgraph Group and their various locations around the world, you also have the affiliated organizations. And then there's the one that we all know about. That's obviously Hedera, right? And then outside of Hedera, you have the Hashgraph Association, which is similar to the group. However, their focus is leaning a bit differently. You can say that this is where a lot of the enterprise efforts focused at the Hedera DLT come from. So that's the Hashgraph Association. Some very big, let's call them partnerships, some news have come from the Hashgraph Association. I believe, Standard Bank. You can see Bank Social there again. I thought they were involved with the whole ArchX thing. Nope. That's okay, though, because that's another entity. You also have the Exponential Science Foundation, which is still fairly new to me. I'm still digging into the Exponential Science Foundation. But a pattern that I am noticing already is the fact that, okay, you have the Hashgraph Association and the Hashgraph Group focused on the Middle East, North African region, Europe, APAC area. And then you have Exponential Science Foundation focused in, according to what I've read so far, the European Union. And then, of course, you have Hedera based in Texas. So are you starting to see how far the tentacles are spreading when it comes to Hedera DLT? And then, of course, there is the HBAR Foundation, also out of Switzerland, I believe. But they have a global influence. You'll get stories centered around work done in Japan and in Korea. We actually have a couple stories that we're going to end this episode with, courtesy of the HBAR Foundation. And then you have, lastly, these are resources here. Oh, that leads to something cool. We'll share that in a second. But lastly, you have Hashgraph, formerly known as Swirlds Labs, which was the company founded by Mance Harmon and Lehman Baird, where they originally created the Hashgraph DLT. I want to say 2010. Somebody correct me in the comments. You guys know I come across a lot of dates. But they created this Hashgraph quite some time ago. That is all the more reason why I trust it. When blockchain technology first became a thing, like post-Bitcoin, them first 3 to 4 years, the assets that we follow, those creators, those inventors, they kind of entered the space within the first few years of Bitcoin. So they have a different understanding mechanically of blockchain technology. That is why I trust them. Now, I just want to show you this here. This is the press release of the day that they made the transition from Swirlds Labs to Hashgraph. And I just kind of like how they explain the vision. What they called shared worlds. This concept envisions an internet of value where different DLT networks converge seamlessly, connecting traditional enterprises with DeFi. It's a vision that deeply excites me because it aligns perfectly with our mission to innovate and lead. The DLT networks converge seamlessly, connecting traditional enterprises with DeFi. We will be covering the newest edition of Chainlink technology on the Hedera DLT, because what's coming out of that is a strong push towards decentralized finance on the Hedera network. So they have a plan. They clearly had this planned out. But folks, there's another entity that you should be very aware of. So what we're looking at here is the council overview, which they still need to update because they have the old Swirls logo here. But if you fish around Hedera's main website, the US Hedera, you'll get this. You'll be able to find this PDF. But you'll also access committee meeting, council meeting minutes. This is public information, guys. When you form a committee, I think you're legally obligated to make this information public. But you see here, members of the governing council that were in attendance for this meeting, along with Hedera director Scott Thiel. Is that guy related to Peter Thiel? Let me find out. But the information I want you to know is it actually occurred back in August, ladies and gentlemen. No, correction, May of this year. It was voted that the Hedera Hashgraph LLC owned Hashgraph source code will be hosted and governed as a project under the Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust. So, in the last couple of weeks, we've talked about the Hyperledger Fabric, Hyperledger Besu being used in multiple places. Now that is called the Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust. It used to be called the Hyperledger Foundation. They were the proponents of the Hyperledger technology. Now it is the Linux Foundation Hyperledger technology. And wouldn't you know it, this source code will be hosted and governed as a project under the Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust. Well, what does that mean? Well, it immediately means that when you're dealing with Hyperledger technologies, one of the premier players you will interact with is Hedera. You can see it there, right next to Accenture, the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, and Hitachi, ladies and gentlemen. So, what we're seeing, especially after the election of Trump, was an increase in the rate of adoption of US-based entities. And I can guarantee you any amount of money that the Trump administration knows exactly who the Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust is. I can guarantee you. Because before crypto was popular as it is now, before everybody wanted to know who we were, it was the Hyperledger Foundation that was receiving funding from, as you can see here, American Express, Citi, T-Mobile, Huawei, Infosys, IBM, R3, Ripple, Stellar. Shall I keep going? Walmart, Visa, Onera also worked on with Hedera. Chainlink Labs, again, Associates, the Bank of France, Digital Currency Forum, Digital Euro Association. I could go all day. But this was the organization where it seemed that every entity important to pushing the needle forward, they collaborated here. So now to see the cogs turning and to see them, one, still here, and two, evolving into what they are becoming now, and Hedera is one of 4 premier members. Look at all of the other assets here. Casper, Gala, Energy Web, okay, Filecoin, where else? Input, Output Hong Kong, so you know Cardano is involved. Polygon. They're not premier, though. Point I'm making is the fact that it's more than just the governing council when it comes to the Hedera network. That is how we were able to see a $100 million Web3 venture fund created in a high-value market such as Abu Dhabi, who has a vision to achieve by 2030, over the next 5 years, of incorporating emerging technology such as DLT. between the Hashgraph Group, the association, Hashgraph, formerly known as Swirls Labs, and Hedera themselves, and the HBAR Foundation, the Hedera network has the potential for global influence, much like other networks do. But what I'm learning is that the pillars within the Hedera ecosystem, built by these independent organizations, give it the most reach. So when people ask you about Hedera, price ain't got nothing to do with it. That is a mechanism we still need to crack, in my opinion. But if you're asking about who's using Hedera, don't just tell them about the governing council. Point them to the Linux decentralized trust. Point them to the HBAR Foundation. Point them to the Hashgraph Group, the Hashgraph Association. Because together, then you'll be able to get the full picture. Now, let's wrap up here. HBAR Foundation gave us some news to that point, and it's going to bring up a certain point, a certain topic, talking about the climate here. But I promise you, in the next 2 minutes, I'm going to show you why. In 2025, I'm going to be keeping my eye on this discussion. I know it raises a bit of controversy. We're not going to get into that. There's money coming here, and that's what our focus is. So, Capital's Coalition, Global Digital Single Market Data Alliance, HBAR Foundation, has partnered with them to advance standards for CSRD compliant climate reporting on the Hedera Guardian. So, to the point of the Hashgraph Association, I believe it's Hashgraph Group, that facilitates the Hedera Guardian. I just want to double check here. You got Sealcoin. Yep. Enterprise Guardian here. So, Hashgraph Group is one of the supporters of the Hedera Guardian. The Hedera Guardian, it was something that entered Hedera's ecosystem, I want to say, in 2020, really when the climate thing was very hot. It's a system of Hedera that's built for ESG-related applications, climate, carbon markets, things like that. There's a reason, though, why I'm keeping my eye on this. But they partnered for this reporting, and what it will entail is that they aim to redefine value to enhance decision-making processes by integrating natural, social, human, and produced capital to the launch of a new global digital single market data alliance. The alliance, a new initiative of the coalition's Digital Sustainability Disclosures Project, aims to revolutionize and tokenize the global framework for digital sustainability data exchange and reporting. The CSRD, that's an EU-mandated climate reporting action. Now, there was an event that took place in November that magnified the crap out of this. And there's another event in January that'll tip the scale, folks. So I mentioned that HBAR Foundation, they often report on events in Korea, the APAC region, right? Japan. Well, when CL and HBAR Foundation launch new greenhouse gas accounting solution on Hedera, this also makes use of Hedera's Guardian platform. It will be aimed at enterprises in South Korea that essentially want to do the same thing, fall in line with ESG reports, give efficient carbon reports of their carbon credits, however they want to do it. Still a very nascent, small, infant market. That's the right word. But I'm showing you a pattern here, guys, because after the holiday, I know Christmas is coming up. Merry Christmas to those who celebrate. Focus on Christmas. Enjoy the family, even for a few days afterwards. Because in January, ladies and gentlemen, there's an event called Davos. And the reason why Davos should be important to you, especially if you're a Hedera holder, is because in 2023, it was announced that the Universal Digital Payments Network would be launching. That was announced at Davos. Well, within 12 months, we found out that the Hedera network would be incorporated into the Universal Digital Payments Network, which was created by two Hedera governing council members in the form of DLA Piper and Toko. Toko isn't a council member, but that's an offset of DLA Piper, which is the council member. Point I'm making is there was an event that took place. It was called COP29. Took place in November of this year. And at this event, a number of agreements were met. One of them being highlighted here. Numerous companies are expected to become subject to mandatory climate and environmental disclosure law worldwide in the coming months, potentially reaching over 10,000 U.S. listed firms under frameworks such as the EU CSRD, California Senate Bill 253 and 261, and similar rules emerging in New Zealand, Singapore, Malaysia, Australia, Hong Kong, South Korea, Japan, and more. This goes on to talk about the Paris Agreement, which I have heard that Donald Trump is trying to get us out of. Don't know everything about it, but that's what I've heard. Leaving that to the side, we should focus on the rules, because even if we are removed from these climate situations due to Trump, the rest of the world still signed on the agreement. And that means that there are a series of mandatory climate and environmental disclosures that must be reported over the next few months. This is going to create an appetite for applications that can do it for people. On top of $300 billion annual pledge. Now, the nations were originally requesting 1.2 trillion. They got the 300 billion. There was a big fight about it even still. But in this report, they also talk about those rules. Countries also agreed on rules for a UN-backed global carbon market. This market will facilitate trading of carbon credits, incentivizing countries to reduce emissions and invest in climate-friendly projects. Incentivizing countries to reduce emissions and invest in climate-friendly projects. The Hedera Guardian is a very climate-friendly project. And when you take into account how many times the Hedera network has been represented at Davos, ladies and gentlemen, there is a lot. There's a lot forming. There is a lot forming. But you know what I like to tell you. You need to get your DHN Crypto Starter Kit, because as we can see, there's a lot more to come when it comes to this crypto stuff. And I just want to make sure that you got all of the information in the beginning to get you started off properly. You'll get a criteria to evaluate assets. You'll get your 5 verticals of crypto, links to various news outlets, crypto ecosystems, analytic sources, everything you need. I promise you. All right. Took me years to find these links and gather these sources. And I just put them in a free PDF for you. Now, I will be working on the 2025 edition this holiday season, this Christmas break. And yes, both of them will be able to connect. Like, there'll be information in here that may not be included in the 2025 version, but I still want you to be able to use both. So outside of that, guys, another way to support the channel. Got the merch stuff fixed. Got some new things coming out. I actually just made this one last night. I like this because that's what we are all. That's what we're all aiming to become, new finance magnets. So you can go and pick up your new finance magnet tee, guys. And remember, use code word HUSTLE at checkout and you get 25% off. And then the last piece here, I want to tell you about Uphold Rewards. All right. Because Uphold is one of the biggest proponents of the XRP ecosystem, the XRP ledger. They have added the RLUSD stablecoin to their rewards. And what it means is that it will be wrapped up in their yield-bearing product centered around stablecoins, which is a little bit different from the USD offering, which, as you can see here, is 4.65%. It's 5.2%. Let me just scroll down to it for your stable coins. And it was reported that RLUSD starting in January will be included in that. So if you want to get you some RLUSD and start getting yield on it, you're going to have to sign up for Uphold. Again, link to that will be in the description. And yes, I must warn you, you could lose all your money. This is crypto. All right. Just got to let you know that. But with that, guys, y'all know what time it is. If that money is digital, so is the hustle.